Well, we're ready to go for the show. This is the pre-playoff edition, Jake. This is Jake Berry. I'm Greg Silver. This is, of course, the show. We had an incredible week. Halloween weekend had 3 big games and a couple others that surprised us. We're going to talk about playoff, not playoff pairings yet, but playoff possibilities. Because we had in this last week of the regular season, Jake, and there's a lot to play for.
Yeah, usually you have like one game that actually matters. This week, we've got all of 32 4A that's still playing for that last spot in 4A. Mm-hmm. And we've got a very meaningful game in 35A.
Yeah, we do. And 31's got to make or break it between...
oh, that's what I meant. Excuse me.
31, 31 5A. Hey, listen, we're getting all this stuff mixed up here, and so we'll start over.
Yeah. Because I still think of 35.
I know, that's horrible.
Yeah.
30 and 31.
All right, and 3, 2.
Hey everybody, this is Greg Silver. That's Jake Berry. This is the show. It's the pre-playoff edition. We got one more week in the regular season, and Jake, we loved our Halloween weekend. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, you got a really good Thursday game in Sherryland and Edinburgh North, and then you had the Bird Bowl on Friday.
It was, you can't beat action like that in the atmosphere. We're going to talk in depth about both games. But where we really want to go, after we get through with the highlights, where we really want to go is to take a preview of the week coming up. There is a lot to play for in this last regular season week.
Yeah, you got pretty much every team in 32 4A still playing for a meaningful game at least.
That's right.
And then 31 5A, you've got PSJ and McCallum Memorial fighting to play Harlingen.
Winner take all, man. It's going to be incredible. The 3A still have a lot of things to sort out. Every district, every conference. Now, you know, back in the old days when the world was young, when there was one team that made the playoffs, or even in the early 80s when there became 2 teams in the playoffs, it meant the last couple of weeks may have left nothing to play for except pride and rivalries and such. But in the modern era, you got 4 teams in the playoffs, and that means that nothing is really truly decided until close to the end.
Yeah, and you know, you have to imagine in 2 years' time we'll have all 8 teams in the playoffs. But
that's just
for
incredible.
right now,
twice actually.
Yeah, you get half the teams pretty much right now. But you know, 4 teams making the playoffs, but it's kind of funny how that 4th game, that 4th seed, is your meaningful one. You know, we've got all those teams in 4A that are just fighting for that, and you know, it's happening in 32 5A also.
We could have a 5-way tie at 4 and 3 in District 32 4A. That's pretty incredible. So the bottom line is it makes the games more exciting toward the end of the season. And makes it almost into a playoff tournament as opposed to the best team goes and everyone else goes home. I'm a traditionalist, and sometimes I kind of grumble about this and that team 4th place. But you know what? The bottom line is more kids getting to play in the playoffs, more bands, more fans, more excitement. How can we be against that?
I know. I love it. And I think this week is going to be almost as eventful as last week.
Well, let's take a look. Speaking of last week and eventful, let's take a look at some highlights with Carlos Robledo, and then we'll get on to talking about this next week. Carlos, you're on, brother.
Sherryland versus Edinburgh North, the showdown. Watch Christian Martinez make the catch here, setting up a touchdown for Michael Gonzalez as he walks it in for the Rattlers. Edinburgh North now here. This is Luis Rios, interception return for a touchdown, and the Cougars get on the board. It was 14-7 to the Cougars. Alex Guerrero hits Santos Rodriguez 45 yards, and the game is tied at 14. But Sherryland answers the score on special teams. This is Justin Harris, and watch him take it to the house, 74 yards. And Ron Adames Rattlers remain undefeated, winning 28-14. In Donna, they take on Economides. Monty Bowen, the super sophomore, 129 yards for him. And Donna, watch the interception here. This is Augie Cantu with the interception, back for a touchdown. Donna wins 24-6. McCallum Memorial versus Mac High in the second overtime. Trevor Spates with the 2-point conversion. It's good, making it 50-42. Mac High scores here. Ricky Rodriguez on the run. Now they need the 2-point conversion to tie it up, but it fails. And McCallum Memorial wins 50-48 in a shocker. Harlingen versus Harlingen South. Brandon Garza scores right here on this nice little run. 21-14, Cardinals win Bird Bowl. Brownsville Vets versus Brownsville Pace. The Chargers, they score first, and they score enough to win the game 28-14. Mercedes versus Roma. Orly Solis, 252 yards, over 2,000 yards now rushing on the year. 35-28, Roma wins it.
Well, that's a look at some of the highlights, man, and we saw some of those ball games, and we're going to be seeing them in the future. Let's talk about 35A and the big game, of course, last week. Sherryland and Edinburgh North over at Cat Stadium on a Thursday, and it was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. 14-0 for Sherryland. And it looked like, and I was at home actually giving out Halloween candy right before I was leaving
this
to
guy,
go.
I thought you were a diehard, boy.
Family. But it was one of those things, I was like, oh, man.
Right, you hate to see that because it's like, oh, it's going to be a bad game.
Yeah, and I was kind of predicting a 20-point blowout. 20, not really. I kind of thought it might be. And then, so I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, 14-7, 14-14.
In the last 2 minutes of the half, North rose from the dead. They hadn't had a first down the whole time, and all of a sudden, a pick six for a touchdown, another turnover, and then ching, a bomb, 45 yards. They went to the half 14-14 when they should have been down 21 or 28 to nothing. Incredible.
And then I got to the game, second half. I got to see them make a change at quarterback. Madden came in, and then he left because of a little nicked up, and Chrysler came in. But the thing is, Sherryland kept kind of giving them chances, turnovers.
If you make 4 turnovers in a big game, you don't expect to win. The reason that Sherryland won that football game is because their defense was phenomenal. We spent the whole time talking about North's defense. We forgot to mention Sherryland, although we did. If you remember last week and rolled tape and noticed, we say they had an underrated defense. I was very impressed with their penetration, their speed, their tackling was sure. 123 total yards for Edinburgh North. Man, they couldn't run the ball to save their lives. Whiteside never had a chance. They were hitting them in the backfield every play.
And the team after the game, they talked about it. They spoke about how their defense was, everybody overlooked their defense, and there's a sense of pride.
The old bulletin board material, right? Well, okay, fair enough. I was impressed with Rudy Tornero, 51. There's a bunch of kids that play well. This little 3, Montalvo's a hard hitter. The guy that stood out to me was Sean Landez, and I'll tell you why. He had about 7 or 8 tackles, and the one he made on Whiteside, I think it was the third quarter. Okay, Edinburgh North's trying to come back again. Whiteside finally breaks, and Landez is on the ground almost, and he reached over and he grabbed that kid by the foot and tripped him up, but he was going 80-something yards to the house, I promise you. That was a huge play in the ballgame.
Yeah, and you have to look at that because, Sherryland, they rotated in 2 quarterbacks. And, I think we kind of talked about this, besides the quarterbacks, was the fatigue factor.
The fatigue factor. Who would get worn out trying to beat the other? And as it turns out, Sherryland held the ball for long enough that Edinburgh North defense is wore down.
Mm-hmm. And was there holding, though? I got a question on that, because I wasn't there in the first half. I got to saw the video. Yeah. Was there a holding on when Diego ran it in?
Oh, there might have been. I don't know. I figure that, it was reasonable, no call. Mm-hmm. Another big play was that punt return by Justin Harris. See, Sherryland made some big plays, and it played good defense, and that countered the fact that it wasn't. It was easy to give away 4 turnovers. So they didn't play their best game. I think they can still play a better game. I really do. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to do that against Vela to finish 10-0, and I think they probably will. Now, what about Edinburgh North moving forward? They get some injured kids back, and they can be right back in the mix there and win a playoff game or 2.
Yeah, they're playing, Eagle Pass, first round?
Yeah, they're going to play Eagle Pass. So beat Del Rio 10-0.
Yeah, so, I think that I'm not saying they're looking forward to that game already because they're going to play this week. They're going to play them hard.
They got La Jolla.
Yeah, but, it's one of those things, they can rest up some players hopefully this week. Get ready for the Eagle Pass game.
Roy Cantu didn't play. Joey Benitez, the safety. Matt Ramirez played safety, had 14 tackles. That guy is one of the better players in the Valley. But the problem with him playing safety was that he didn't play receiver. That took away a game changer. It took away a game breaker. So I'm not going to sit there and make excuses. Edinburgh North got their butt beat fair and square. If they'd have had a chance to use Matt more in the offense, I think it would have been a little bit different. Bottom line is Sherryland took them out. They're going to win district and go 10-0.
Yeah, and this is the post-Trace era. So it's big for them. It's big for those young quarterbacks.
Post-Trace, and let me just say something about Diego Chrysler. I thought that kid had a phenomenal first half. He had got a little. He was on shaky ground at the end of the half, but that was because the North defense really did what it does, which is take the ball away and score. He was 16 out of 24. They threw 24 passes in the first half. I'll tell you what, that little Michael Gonzalez 24 ran hard. He had about 60-something yards. They didn't have a ton, but they had enough yards to move the ball on the ground so they could throw the ball the way they wanted. I think they had 315, 313. Not a ton of yards for Sherryland, but against that North defense, I thought that was a fine effort. 28-14, Sherryland gets the win. Now, Donna Redskins are in the playoffs again. 6 out of 7 years. You can pretty much count on that program being in. They're just a solid club.
Yeah, and I was at that game for the first half, in the part of the second half.
This guy's first half, Fred, he gets around.
Yeah. The Donna game, they came out and it looked like Economides was going to take it to him.
Yeah.
And then
they got a touchdown early, right? Emilio Zuna guy again. That's the second fumble in the end zone. That guy's Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Donna just turned the switch, and they're like, you know what? Let's just
Monte Bowen. I told you about that guy. He's an animal, man. He's a young kid too. Economides had a bunch of penalties, a bunch of turnovers. They didn't play well. They must play well this week against Palmview to clinch that fourth playoff spot. Kind of the same scenario last year. Had to go out there to Palmview. This year they get them at home. They win the ball game. They're in. Now Palmview did manage to get a win last week against La Jolla, so that's not a winless team anymore.
Yeah. Now it's a little bit different. Now they got a little bit of. Moxie after getting a little win, especially second to last game.
Nobody wants to go 0-10, and so they're not going to do that, and actually no one is in that district. So that's nice to see. I don't want to see anybody get embarrassed. Mm-hmm. Bottom line is Palmview's going to come to town thinking they can win.
Yeah, and if Economides can't have the penalties that they had against Donna, they can't have all those false starts, all those
losing the focus, man. Now, you know what? I think the Jags are going to pull it off, and they're going to go to the playoffs, and they're probably going to play Alexander. Nonetheless, a playoff berth is a playoff berth. So that's the picture over in 35A. We'll go back to the Sharyland North game to talk about a kid, 51, Jose Moreno. Heck of a player. Had on one series, he had 3 tackles that I counted on one series. But apparently, he also is a pretty good schoolboy as well. So he's our Scholar Athlete of the Week. Let's see what it's all about.
Jose Moreno competes in the classroom the same way he competes on the field, always trying to do better.
My ranking right now is around 11. I used to be 8, but then kind of dropped a little bit when they updated the new rankings. I want to try to get back up in the top 10.
Moreno is a senior defensive tackle for the Edinburgh North Cougars and learns a lot from football that he can apply to his studies.
The dedication it takes for football, you have to practice every week. Same thing for school. You have to study. You have to just, every notes you may get, whatever you may get, you got to just study it, look over for the test. Same thing for here. We get our notes for every game. We have to study it, go over plays every single day to get ready for the game.
He says he would like to maybe be a doctor someday. Whatever he decides, his coach says he will be successful.
He's also our prayer counselor guy, and real good kid. And again, they demonstrate what they have out here also in the academic world, and they're leaders, and they're going to be leaders and good community people. And
Jose Moreno, the South Texas College Scholar Athlete of the Week.
Well, Jake, District 3158, we have to start with that amazing track meet that was Memorial and McAllen. First, let me just say that since 2004, there have been 4 different games where the teams combined for over 80 or 85 points, 04, 08, 09. I think this year was 50-48. Double overtime, the kid gets his 2-point conversion, and Memorial saves its season again. Those guys are on a roll.
Yeah, and it all happened after that bye week because a lot of teams would I don't want to say fold, but they might cash it in a little bit.
Yeah,
and it just seems like Coach Littleton and his staff and the players just kind of retooled the whole thing. I mean, they. And it's funny. I saw Pedraza today at the outlets. I don't know if he saw me, gawking at him.
Yeah.
But when they lost him, it looked like the season was over, and they've come around.
They've come around and they scored 55 points a game the last 5 weeks. You look at some of those scores, you figure it's almost time for basketball season, man. Mm-hmm. Memorial is scoring a ton. McAllen scored right with them, came up short, 2-point conversion. Now the upshot of the game is this. McAllen can still win district. They got 1 loss, and they've kind of not come back down to earth, but now they're not undefeated. There is no pressure. Now they can win this week against PSJ Memorial, go into the playoffs, get the 4th place team from 32, and make a run in the postseason.
Yeah, and I was pretty stupid if you remember last week's.
Never.
I'm not sure if we're going to cue the video up or not, but I kind of, for some reason, I had the weeks mixed up, and no offense to Coach Cavazos' team, but I thought it was PSJ Memorial last week, and I said that Mac High didn't really, they could take this week kind of a little bit lighter, or last week's, and I forgot what game it was, and there's something to be said because I remember when Mac High had the stronger teams before, and Memorial came out and beat them.
It's happened. It's always crazy.
And it's happened before when Bradley Stevens was there. Mac High beat them.
That's right.
And so it's one of those things you can never overlook the other team, no matter how bad they're playing or how bad they had played. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said about this game and rivalries. When we talk rivalries, this is one of those games.
It's like the turf over there in McAllen is on fire. When Rowe plays McAllen, when Rowe plays Memorial, when the McAllen schools play each other, it's a madhouse, man. Boy, I'll tell you what. I haven't got a chance to go back over there yet, but I think I'm going to try to make it. PSJ and Memorial. How's that for a big game this week? So Memorial comes off the win against McAllen. PSJ comes off that big win against Weslaco. They only gave him about 220 yards or some such. So now it's a win or in. What do you call it? Not win and in? Or one and done? Or what do you call it? Win or else. Yeah. Let's call it win or else. So PSJ Memorial, how do you see that one coming?
Well, that's the interesting thing. PSJ has a great defense, and everybody kind of talks about the defense, but their offense is putting up points too. Yeah. And they played a really good game against Weslaco. I see this game being a track meet. I do see it being a track meet because I don't know if Memorial can win it any other way.
Well, if you want a track meet, then why not get Fili Patino in that thing, man? He's a pretty good sprinter. He had another big game last week. He's got about 800 yards. He broke one for a touchdown. Nathan Cifuentes caught a big touchdown, 65 yards. Bobby Guajardo is playing both ways for the Bears now, and that guy, to me, I've told you since the beginning, I think he's one of the best all-around players in the Valley. PSJA has a chance to win and make the playoffs, and they were 1-9 last year. Boy, isn't that a neat thing for them? Just to be in this position right now, kind of like Memorial in the context of this season. They look bad, now they look good. PSJA was not very good last year, and look what they've done so far.
Yeah, a new offense, a really good defense, and it's crazy how well they're playing. Now, the one thing that really sucks about this whole situation is you win and you face Harlingen.
I know, yeah. Well, for Memorial, if they win, it will be a rematch of the playoff game last year. If PSJA wins, those two teams played in the playoffs. Here's your history lesson for the day. 1989, 1990, 1991. PSJA and Harlingen played in my district 3 times in a row. Harlingen won twice, PSJ won once. They had a great team in 1990. Of course, Harlingen was incredible in 1989. See, that's the funny thing. People, the last 2 years, okay, it's 4-16 for the Bears right before this season. People are like, PSJA. Those guys, if you look at the records from 2000 to 2008, they were in the playoffs 6 out of 9 times. They went 3 deep in 05. So, that's a program that's proud, that loves to win. Mel Rios, our good friend, was a fine coach over there. It was only a matter of time. Although this is the problem in 4-team towns, right? Edinburgh, PSJA, to a lesser extent La Jolla. If you get so many teams in town, I don't care how much talent you have, you're not going to be as good. There's almost no way unless it's all in one place.
Yeah, it's all if it's diluted across the board, and that's what Brownsville is suffering with.
Yeah, Brownsville, you got 6 teams, and then the St. Joe's. I mean, so the thing is, that's going to make it more competitive, like it is, but we may not see teams going as far in the playoffs. And of course, I say that, and we may have someone go win the state title this year. But my point is that Tri-City has always had good football. It was only a matter of time before one of those teams got back up and did it. And so PSJ Bears exciting. They can make the playoffs. Who's going to win? That's an incredible game. And it's a Thursday game. I'm going to that game. I've made up my mind. I like both of those programs and coaches. I'm going to go. Are you going to go?
Yeah, I'm going to be there. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? I really like PSJ. I really like PSJ. But every time that I've kind of overlooked Memorial.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
They come from behind and just and they win.
They took opposite paths, right? Because remember, PSJ started out 3 or 4-0, hit a bad stretch. They had that bye week, and after that, they won a couple of ball games. And they have played good defense. I love Nick Mendoza, Chris Minshew. They got a lot of players in that defense. Christian Sanchez, 22, that linebacker. Their front 7 is tough. Now they got to tackle the kid. Mm-hmm. You can't stop the kid in less than 3 yards. Why would you want to pass on a 2-point conversion when you can give the ball to Spates, man? That guy is phenomenal. He's going to bust 2,000 yards. His average per carry is 2 points higher than it was last year, and he scored twice as many touchdowns.
And they're getting the ball to the receivers finally.
DJ Johnson's got 4 touchdown catches. Once during the game, they're going to throw a ball up there, and he's going to jump higher than everyone else. And unless you do something, he's going to catch it and he's going to score. So he is just now learning how to play football. Man, if he really concentrates and learns it and really wants to be a good football player, he's got the size to be a D1 football receiver.
Yeah, and a lot of teams, a lot of places haven't seen one player that size, and it seems like they between Jacob Garza that was there.
Oh yeah, I remember that long kid. He was tough. Yeah, I liked him.
They're always coming back with these big receivers, big tight ends. They've got size over there, and it's a great luxury to have.
Yeah, indeed. Let's get to the playoff pairings, and then we'll take a break. It looks like McAllen, if they win this week, they will win the district. Weslaco, of course, the good thing about McAllen losing is that Weslaco lost 2. Mm-hmm. So they had 1 loss, they would have been tied. Now they have 2 losses. East is in there. Weslaco's in there, McAllen's in there. Looks like if things stay the way they are, Weslaco going to play Los Fresnos, and they played in the playoffs a couple of times in recent history. In fact, last year, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty good ball game. The winner of Memorial and PSGA will take on Big School Harlingen. Harlingen South against Weslaco East, which if that's the way it ends up, is lining up as one of the best playoff games of the first round. And then, of course, McAllen, if they win the district, will play the fourth place team from 32-5A, and we'll need a crystal ball later on to figure out who that will be. So it's been a wonderful season, 1 week left. And here's the deal. Some of these teams are not in the playoffs, but I'm telling you, at San Benito, those guys are going to want to come out and play Weslaco hard, and they're going to want to kick the dog out of them. So, I mean, in other words, just because you're not going to the playoffs, the seniors, it's your last game. You got to play hard because you're going to remember this moment the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, that's 31-5A. I keep on pounding my clipboard here. I'm just going to make a hole in it. I'm getting excited about this stuff. Let's take a commercial break real quick, and when we come back, we'll go drive south and go down to 32-5A. Well, we're back here on the show, and I've just been informed that the wonderfully precise and articulate version of 32-5A that we already did not tape.
It's gone.
Yeah, forever. You will not be able to see flying monkeys and dancing bears, but that's okay.
Well, you look good with your shirt off, though.
I appreciate that. He always has to say something weird like that, you know what I'm saying? All right, 32-5A, it's all about the Bird Bowl. And, of course, you didn't go because you're a loser.
Yeah, I was at the a couple games. No, let's just not say where I was at. But if you saw the other segments, you probably already know.
Yeah, this is true. Is there going to be another Adam Smith moment? That was funny last week, by the way. See, this guy's very clever, and if you're not careful, they're kind of like a snake you from behind there, man. Anyway, hey, the Bird Bowl was unbelievable. Harlingen got out to the big lead. South came all the way back, almost 21-14 final. A lot of things that we talked about last week on the show tended to come through. I'll tell you what, neither team allowed much. Their run defenses were phenomenal.
Yeah, and there's we talked about this. There's this toughness that Harlingen brings to the game, and not to say that South doesn't have it, but Harlingen, and especially in this kind of game, they want to punch you in the mouth, and I think you saw it on that fumble in the end zone.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, Harlingen, what do you know? Clado scores a touchdown off a defensive play early in the game, got up 7-0. That gave them some momentum. They couldn't run the ball in that South defense, so they had a lot of good kids playing football. Brandon Rodriguez, 35, I always liked that guy. They were all over the backs, but you know what? The back of the week ended up being the quarterback, Brandon Goddison. He ran 25 times, man.
Something to be said too, and he's not Ledesma. He's not a runner. First off, and thrower second. Mm-hmm. He's a thrower. He's a pocket quarterback. 2,000
yards, 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He was not able to go downfield much. They got 2 downfield plays. One was a jet sweep pass for 36. The other was a flea flicker from Brandon, got it back and threw down to Brandon Vasquez, who, by the way, is emerged as the leading receiver on that team, partially because C.J. Gallegos, 13, is spending a lot of time on defense. There's a lot of guys going both ways these days. Nick Garcia does it for South. It was a tremendous game. I thought that Harlingen South showed a lot of resolve, getting back up off the mat like that. They scored 2 touchdowns quick in the third quarter. It was 21-14. If you read my story, the overlooked key juncture of the game. Okay, so Harlingen South scores twice. They hold the Cardinals, and the Cardinals punt. Nick gets the punt. He runs to the 45, his own 45. I thought he got popped pretty late. I thought it was going to be a 15-yard penalty. They're going to be on the 40 of the Cardinals. As it turns out, the call was an illegal block on the Hawks. They started at their own 29 instead of Harlingen's 40. They ended up not converting that drive. Then they fell victim to the turnovers, and they had 5, by the way. And so that, to me, really kind of robbed them of some momentum. I'm not saying it was a bad call. It was just like, wow, you could have started at the 40 of them or the 29 of yours. Which would you pick?
Yeah, and those are one of those things you don't really want to see, because it just takes away from the game. I mean, I'm not saying it's the referee's fault or anything like that, but
we haven't been blaming refs all year, have we?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's a pitiful theme. Yeah. Now for blaming the refs.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that, and I don't mean that. What I do mean is that, boy, momentum-wise, it was tough. I'll tell you what, though, man, the Harlingen defense is fast. Okay, Felix Reynes, a guy who made a big hit that led to that defensive touchdown. Elijah DeLeon is a good little player, number 3. He had 9 tackles. Their front line, that Ray Moreno, 24, I keep bringing his name up. He's always on the play. 36 is on plays. They got a bunch of kids. Bermea, who, by the way, Bermea's brother was at the game. Randy Bermea, remember?
Mm-hmm. I think he's fast.
He's fairly fast, yeah. Ledesma was at the game. Prado, Leo Wadigoose. See, that's the thing about Harlingen. Until somebody shows that they're tougher and more cocky than the Cardinals and who believe in themselves more, they're not going to beat them, man. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think South had the talent to win the ball game, and they came on back because they're a good team. But, to get down like that, 21-0, Harlingen, and here's what I'm going to say now. I don't want to get Harlingen mad at me because, I like those guys. Is this the best Harlingen team I've seen since 1989 all the way through the years? No. Is it a good playoff team that can win a couple of games, maybe go to the third round? Yes. But the thing that makes them great right now is that the magic, the moxie, the energy, the feeling that they will not be beaten. And it starts with the coaching staff and it goes down to every one of those kids. You should have seen them before the game. Montgomery Medley and DJ Davis, the two big linemen, and Davis was just pushing people around. He had an all-valley type game, 74. Those two guys were going up and down the road, getting people fired up. And you know how you see that happen usually at a game, and there's two guys getting fired up, and everyone else is kind of this. All those dudes were jacked, man. They were juiced, and they were just ready to explode, and that's what they did. They were more explosive in the first half, and that's why they got up 21-0.
Yeah, and I was at another game, and I was looking at the score. I'm like, oh boy, 21-0.
It's going to be a blowout. Yeah. But see, that's the thing about the Hawks, man. They have arrived as a team that is of great stature. So they were able to come back to 21-14. They turned the ball over too much. They could not run the ball. And the bottom line is they were close, though. Harlingen was sweating it. They were playing a little tentative in that third and fourth quarter, and South was the one getting cocky and hitting people. It was a fantastic game. The crowds were amazing. Seeing Harlingen on the other side, though, is kind of a weird. They were on the visitor's side. You're like, what in the world is going on here? But you know what? I wouldn't have been anywhere in the world but there. Randy Creeders and those guys put on a beautiful show every time. Me and him were talking before the game. Is it going to rain? Looks like light. After the game, it rained, and everybody was happy. I'll tell you what, when I got out in that turf for the first minute, when I drove up my car, I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to be there for like a month in a row. This is an amazing thing, and that's why I do this, because nights like that make it worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Where does South go from here? Because they've got a tough game this week.
Yes, they do. They got to go play the Falcons or Los Fresnos, and let me tell you, that is a tough out. Clint Finley's team is good. They got weapons. They hit. They got a good defense. That's going to be no easy muster for them. South has just got to get over it, man. They got to go Monday to practice. Of course, you're going to be watching this on Tuesday or Wednesday, so we'll do a little, time machine like an underdog, right? They've just got to get over it and move on, because you can't play that game again this week. Yeah. You can get mad about it and you can be pissed, and next year you can beat them. This week you got to play those Fresnos. You got to get ready for the playoffs, and they can go a long ways. Who knows? They may go as far or farther than Harlingen. You just never know.
Yeah, it's all about the matchups right now, because if they get a favorable matchup, and we've seen it before, La Jolla when they beat PSA a couple years back.
Right, yeah.
It's all about the matchups, and right now, I mean, you finished this game against Los Fresnos,
going to the playoffs,
and it's a clean slate.
And you see Weslaco East maybe looming on the horizon. Now, what about this last team from 32-5? We've been on the phone all afternoon trying to figure out the positive points and all these shenanigans, and our answer is probably Rivetta. Amazing. Rivetta was dead in the water. We saw them against Edinburgh North, and we didn't think they were going to have a good season.
No.
But they have.
And they're very easy to kind of stop during that game, especially when you have a defense like Edinburgh North had at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Where, this guy's cold, man. Yeah. 1 week he's off the bandwagon. That's wrong. Off the reservation.
But, they were able to pop Jaquil Evans. And Jaquil Evans is one of those guys that you just sit there and you're like, you look at his physique, the way he runs. The kid's a stud.
Oh, he's Tony Ellis from the 90s who played at Hannah. He's the same type of guy, a tall, long, striding greyhound who can go to the downs, as they used to say, go to the downs or go the distance. He's had a great season. You look at his yardage total, he's over 1,000. He's had about 2/3 of that the last 3 or 4 games. Rivetta has been on a roll. They've got to win. And they're looking at the Hannah-Harlingen game. If the Cardinals beat Hannah and Rivetta ends up tied with Vets and them, then they're going to go positive points. And that would be a neat thing for Tom Chavez, the coach, hey?
Yeah, I mean, especially, he's had a bumpy ride over there. So this is it's nice for him. Look, I mean, I don't wish for any coach to have more success than the other.
Right.
But it's nice to see him get this.
Hey, man,
success.
He's a veteran. He's one of those guys that, like Medrano, like these guys we've been talking about. Monty Stoneball, we're going to talk about him later, got his 100th win. The veteran coaches, they somehow seem to be able to steer their ships in the right direction upon rocky shoals, right?
Yeah.
So we'll find out what happens in 32-5A. Brownsville veterans had a pretty good season. Some injuries kind of ended their run, but I expect them to be good in the future. Now, I always have to do this. I have to ask this guy, because he's the brains of the operation, what are we tipping to now? Oneda, who was at the Bird Bowl and who is a lovely person, and may she live to be 120. But she was talking to me and gabbing on to me while I was trying to keep my stats, and I just wanted to tackle her and stuff. But, we got it figured out. But the bottom line is she's delightful and she's very bright. And so let's see what kind of shenanigans she was up to at the game, because it's always pretty cool.
So this is the 20th Bird Bowl. What's going on through your mind? Who are we representing? Let's cover the shirt. Who are we representing?
Harlingen South Hawks.
Okay, what is this? A tailgate? I see.
Yeah, tailgate party. Tailgate party.
Who is it organized by?
The parents right here. All our kids play.
So then, who are you guys representing tonight?
Nick Garcia. Harlingen South, Sean Montmel.
Nick Garcia. Frankie Quiroz.
Okay, so I'm here with Raul. Raul, not to start any, fire or anything like that, but South was saying that this is going to be their 5th win.
Well, South has a very, very good team, seen them play, and have much respect for them. I do believe Harlingen has a slightly better team. We're hoping that, we get our 6th straight win in a row, so we'll see how it turns out.
So how excited are this? Are you excited to see a certain player, or?
Well, yeah, I just don't, I just don't want to put it on camera, but yes, you can tell by the energy. A lot of people are here. A lot of people are showing up. A lot of ex-Cardinal players. A lot of ex-South players. There's been a lot of talking on Facebook about if they lose, they're going to put up a sign that says "We love Harlingen Cardinals." And if we lose, we're going to put up a sign that says "We love South Hawks." So we're excited about the game.
You know what? Now I'm excited too. And for everyone watching, you can go ahead and add me on Facebook on Neida Guerra, or you can go to 956sports.com and you'll be able to go directly to my Facebook.
It is tails. Montemayor on the keep. Loose ball. Recovered by the Cardinals.
Scores 21-20. Cardinals are winning, and it's halftime. My favorite time.
For its first division at the
Hey guys, so I'm here with, what's your name, huh? Allie Hobson. Okay, we noticed that out there you were doing it all. You were doing the drums, you had the stick, you were doing it all.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we're doing a kind of like old-fashioned drum major thing, and that's what I am. So we kind of wanted to go way back, and it's to like help our show, because our show's called Our Journey. So we wanted to do like our journey through time. So we went back to old drum major, to old marching, and then we progressed on to the future.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Pigskin. Who was y'all's biggest rival, and what happened after all?
Our biggest rival was Harlingen High School South. They beat us in the prelims, but we did our big Cardinal comeback and we took it home.
And I don't know, according to the scoreboard, it looks like you guys are going to take it home tonight too.
I really hope so. Our team's really good and so is there, but I have a feeling that we're going to beat them.
To be able to be checking out everything, and Cardinals took it 21-14. As you can tell, they're celebrating.
.32-4A is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Meat grinder, murderer's row. Forget about 31-5A. This 4A district is amazingly complicated, and it's fun because almost every team has a chance to make the playoffs on the last day of the season. We could end up with a 5-way tie behind Edcouts at 4-3. Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, it's, you know what though, it's unique because we don't see that in the other districts. This district, you got Rio, Roma, Mission Vets, Mercedes.
Who else is? Everybody's in it. Who's not? The only two teams out are PSJ Southwest and Valley View, and they could be the upset spoilers of the week. Here's the schedule. Mercedes and Mission, that's a Mercedes. Edcouts and Rio, Edcouts is pretty much salted away the district championship as we predicted. Veterans and PSJ Southwest, and Roma and Valley View. First, let's start with that Mercedes-Mission game because it is the linchpin, as we like to say, of the entire situation. If either team wins, it is in, correct?
Yes.
And we got this stuff straight from the coach's mouth. We're talking about all these pairings and possibilities. Mercedes has not, for having some really good defensive players, has had some trouble stopping some teams, right? They got beat by Roma last week, 35-28. Of course, Michael Uribe told us that it didn't start out well because on the trip over there, the bus broke down. He knew he was in for a hard night when you can't even get to the game on time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what, though? I mean, he didn't make any excuses. He basically, he said we had too many turnovers. Romo.
Short field.
Yeah, and Romo's ready to play.
Heck yeah. Orly Solis. Now, I'm going to have to check this. By the way, he passed 2,000 for the second time in a row. The guy's amazing. He should be the MVP of the Valley, in my opinion. So Roma guy carries 48 times. I think that's a record. I remember Papi Rodriguez carried 44 times. A kid from Sherryland in 78 got 44 carries. And somebody recently had more than that and broke the record by 1 or 2. I think Orly Solis set a record. I'm going to have to look it up. 48 carries in a game. Some guys don't carry 48 times in the season.
Yeah.
That guy's amazing.
Yeah, and the thing about him, he's not overly big. You know?
Overly. He's tiny.
Tiny.
Tiny but packed. He's a bad dude. Look like a fighter, you know?
Yeah, but you know what? It's hard to tackle him. It's hard to stop him, and it's hard to catch him once he goes by you.
No, he'd be a middleweight. He'd be about 154. He's not a welterweight. Give me a break. 137.
Yeah.
All right, so Roma plays. Oh wait, we're talking about Mercedes Mission. You got me all confused. Mercedes Mission at Mercedes. Mission's coming on, man. They had a poor start at 1-3. Now they won a couple in a row. It started with that win over Vets, if you recall. A big win. They scored 44 points. They go over to Mercedes with a chance to punch their own ticket. And who would have predicted that a couple of weeks ago?
Oh, I know. And you know, it's interesting because you know it's a team kind of going the opposite ways because Mercedes lost two games.
That's right. They were on top of the world at 4-0.
Yeah, the Ed Couch game, the last week's Roma game, and then now Mission's going the other way. So you know, it's a nice thing to see right now because you get to see, you know, either one team's going to get on track or the other one's going to
who's going to do what to whom, man? Because there's no tomorrow for either team. Presses, by the way, Rene Presses for Mercedes. I think he's the leading passer in the Valley. He went over 2,000 yards. Boy, what a fill-in he's been. I'll tell you what, he's been a good player. For Mission. You know, they're starting to get some good quarterback play. Jerry Baudetta is the guy, a basketball player. All of a sudden, he came out of nowhere the last 3 or 4 games. He's had a pretty good season. So offensively, they're decent, but the defense is what Mission always hangs its hat on. Now, we've talked about Adonis Juarez, man. That guy is an amazing little linebacker. Sabas Garcia is a big defensive lineman, and he's a pretty rough customer. We talk about Harlan's attitude. Mission has an attitude, too, just like their coach, man. They refuse to lose, and they're mean as hell. So, and the other kid in the secondary, Ulysses Moreno, that guy is 27. You keep an eye on that kid. So, you know, the matchup seems to be in Mission's favor, although guess what? They're playing on the road, and I think Mercedes is going to come out and play really well. We felt like Coach Uribe had a lot to say about his team in a very positive way. Hey, and like you said, they've overcome adversity all year. What is one more week?
Yeah, and you know what? He's not one of those coaches that's overlooking it because he said to us that he's not overlooking Mario Pena.
Better not, man, because Pena is a rough customer, and so is his ball club. That, to me, is the game of the week, and I'm going to be there to check that out in Mercedes. Okay, Ed Couch and Rio. Rio has apparently figured it out. They're 4-2. They have all the positive point scenarios. The Rattlers, boy, they've got some good players over there.
Yeah.
They really do. That Damian Muniz is obviously some kind of receiver, man. That guy can find the end zone. Noe Gonzalez, hey, you know, there were some question marks about whether he was ready to do his thing. That guy's having a great year. He's leading the Valley in touchdown passes. I believe he had 21.
Yeah, and, you know, and that's the team that switched it up, too, because, you know, the last couple of years they were a spread team, didn't really run it as much.
Now they run it more.
They're running it more, and it's opening up the passing game.
Yeah, little Costello is a pretty good little back over there. I believe he had 1,000 last year. So Rio is looking fine. Of course, against Ed Couch, it's Ed Couch's team that is pretty much on a roll now. That's going to be a tough deal.
Now, you know, the question is, you know, Ed Couch really doesn't lose much if they want to sit guys out too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but I'll tell you what, those Yellow Jackets need to be proud of the effort they've made. They got that early stumble out of the way, and they haven't been beaten since.
Yeah.
Okay, so Veterans of PSD Southwest. Boy, Veterans, you expected to crater. All the odds were that, okay, they lose the best player around, and they're going to do poorly. Hey, R.J. De Leon had 279 yards passing, ran for a couple of touchdowns, and John Garcia, this guy, I always thought he was kind of a big back with good hips. He apparently had a nice game, tied it up. They won it in overtime. Bobby Tovar, the sophomore, 31-24. They win in OT. Vets is still alive.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because, you know, Coach Gilpin, you know, he hasn't had much luck with his, you know,
I know, with injuries. Golly.
So, yeah, and so, you know, he lost Santos. He's still back in it.
I like RJ. RJ's not bad. I'll tell you another thing that Vets did. They got Freddie Gonzalez back in the mix. And that dude had a good year last year. He's been off and on. I believe he was hurt. He came back and had a big game receiving. He's been a very productive member of that team for 2 years. And I think, look, sometimes you win some, you lose some. This cat goes out. This dude is ready to play. So I think Fred made a big difference. He's a big boy.
Yeah, I do too. You know, and look, this game, on paper, they should win.
I think they should. Now, PSD Southwest at certain times during the year has been a very effective running team, a little bit one-dimensional, and they've got some guys who can hit you. So they're not going to want Vets to make the playoffs at their expense because Mission has to. I think Mission has to lose and Vets has to win. Roma's the one that, golly, I was looking at their record. They won 30 games the last 9 years. They've been getting better every year. 4-6, 5-5, 5-4 right now. I don't know, man. It's going to be tough for them. They're the one that needs a lot of shenanigans to happen. They win, take care of business against Valley View, but a lot of other things have to happen. I'm not sure they're going to make it, man.
Yeah, you know, we're going to have a bunch of 4-3 teams, I think, and you it really doesn't matter. It's Mission and Mercedes.
Yeah, that's the game, and that's where I'm going. So you're going to try to check some of that?
Yeah, I'm going to go there. And we're doing that game live on 956sports.com, so you'll be able to listen to it and then watch the video afterwards.
Now, the 4As are going to have tough musters in the playoffs. We've already talked about that, but we're going to save a lot of our talk about the Coastal Bend schools and Laredo for next week, because by the time we get back next week, we're going to know who's going to play who and where, so that'll be pretty fun, too. Okay, we have a commercial coming up. Is there anything special we'd like to tip to? What's the deal?
No, I think that's
it?
That's it.
Okay, well, we'll sell some hamburgers, and we'll be back in about 60 seconds. Or actually, on the web.
You know what?
Oh, wait, you got one.
What strikes me is that we're talking about 32 4A, and we're talking about Roma. We're talking about how well they're doing this year.
Yeah.
A chance to make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs ever over there.
Yeah.
Coach Max Habecker.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, man, that has been an uphill climb, and that guy seems like he's really been a patient, steady mentor for those kids, and they are on the verge of doing something great. Even if they don't, I feel like they've made great strides and the program is established. And so our Coach of the Week, let's hear what Max has to say, because you know what? He deserves some credit, and so do those kids.
We played great. It was an amazing feeling. We've been challenging the kids to play at a playoff level caliber, and they've stepped up the last few games that we've needed to win. And the best part about it is that we're in it for one more week, and we still got a shot, and that's what we want. We want to play with purpose on next Friday, and that's the most important thing.
Realistically, you all have been in this playoff mode since your first couple of losses.
Yeah, I mean, we lost to Ed Couch in double overtime. We lost to Mission West by 1 point. The kids have been playing great football this year, without a doubt. It's a tribute to their hard work, and it's a tribute to the coaching staff and everything that goes with that.
See, now you do a show with a guy like this, and he's going to pull off some funny things. And so he's telling jokes here during the commercial. So if we look a little bit disheveled, it's because you're just a very clever character. To say the least, to say the most.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 3A. And it's another dogfight down there. PI, obviously, top ranked, 10-0, first time since '94. But a lot of other things have yet to be established in that race, both districts. Gruya and Kingsville is going to be an interesting game, isn't it?
Yes. Kingsville, what they did last week.
71-27. It looked like a basketball game.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I would like to see Kingsville play PI. I'd like to see them. I want to see that matchup this year.
Yeah.
I wish we could do that. But Gruya, it's a tough game for them.
Yeah, it is.
But they have the players.
Hey, man, they're 7-2. Outside of Port Isabel, which is like in that class by itself, like old Bum Phillips used to say about Earl Campbell, right? Mm-hmm. He may not be in a class by himself, but it sure don't take long to call the roll. That's the way it is this year with PI. It's fine and dandy. But Gruya 7-2. Their playmakers turned the tide against Zapata. They won 33-26. Troy Trialles, which is an amazingly hard name to say, but I might have pulled it off, and Robert Camarillo. Both those guys went to the house. They got a 33-26 win now against a pretty good Kingsville team. Hey, if they beat them, man, they're going to be doing something in the playoffs. I think they're going to be in it anyway.
Yeah, I think they're in too. I just think that I think Abel's got a great team over there.
Mm-hmm.
Minus the hiccup against PI. They played hard.
Yes, they did.
Not many teams have played PI that hard.
No, what was it, 21-7?
Or
something like that. We'll look it up. So the rest of the group, though, Hidalgo La Feria is a big game, and there's a lot of things riding on that. Rio
Hondo makes the playoffs.
Hidalgo is in. Rio Hondo can make it if they beat Progreso, I believe. And if they lose, then and La Feria wins, Progreso has a chance if they win by 19. If they're standing on the left circle and reciting the Quran on one leg, it's an amazingly weird stuff that's got to happen. There aren't too many teams that are out. Lyford, if they beat Raymondville, they're right back into the deal.
Yeah,
man, it's amazing. I was a little bit surprised at Raymondville, but you know what? That the Battle of Willacy County, or as they started calling it lately, the Cotton Bowl, that's going to be a fun night because those two teams are neighbors, they're friends, they're families, some of them. So that always to me is a fun thing. I'm just sad that I'm not going to be able to go see that ball game.
Yeah, and look, when you look at Raymondville on paper, they look great.
Oh, they got a lot of yards.
Yeah,
435 yards a game.
They just they haven't been able to put it together when they needed to, to finish off games, or to come back in games.
I expect them to have a big effort against Lyford, get into the playoffs, and maybe make some noise where they might face a rematch with PI, though. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when that game that was called remember that crazy night where half the games were played?
All the rain.
Yeah. Right now, it's hard for us to say who's going to be where, but I can tell you that Santa Rosa stands a good chance of winning their district. La Villa has a pretty good chance of winning their district. They beat Santa Maria. So next week is when we talk all about the playoff pairings and who did make it and who did not. Now, bottom line is, as we said at the beginning of the show, it's interesting that 4 teams make it. You can argue many ways, you like it or dislike it, but it means that the last week of the season means a ton, and so it makes it more fun for us because we can sit here talking about all the teams that didn't make it. Now we're talking about all these teams that may have not had a great season, but they can sneak in, and who knows what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's a different season in the playoffs.
Second season indeed. Okay, so before we get out of here, is there anything else we've talked about? St. Joe came back, scored 73 points. Oh, by the way, parenthetically, the amount of points scored was down to 33 or 34 on the average. It may be that the closer you get to the playoffs, maybe the defense will start playing harder. I don't know.
Yeah, you would hope that would be the case.
Better be.
At least in the Mercedes and Mission games, we hope so.
Oh, that's going to be a hard-hitting game. I'll listen to that electric guitar kid from Mercedes. I'm going to be happy as a clam. Sponsors are Montgomery Ward, Sears, and no, don't even exist anymore.
Yeah. Special thanks to South Texas College for being our sponsor of our Scholar Athlete.
All right.
McDonald's and the Payne Auto Group for helping us put this all together.
I once bought a truck there. I know I've said that before, but that will not hurt. And I enjoyed it for 7 years. So thanks to the Paynes for that and for the show. Greg Selber, Jake Berry, the show. We have a good time doing this, and we make lots of money doing it as well. That and other canards and lies will be told in their entirety next week on the show. Goodbye.